Today on What Went Wrong, there's something different about your favorite character, isn't there?
Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and welcome.
No, I'm Brett Mauser.
Today, we're going to talk about something that even Hollywood can't avoid. Every now and then, you may come across an actor that that causes you some problems, or there's scheduling conflicts, or sometimes in some of the most famous ones, there's physical injuries that they just have to step out of a role. So they can quit, they can get fired. Any number of things can happen.
Medical issues, or it could be anything.
So we're going to discuss today what happens what do you do when that happens? And coming from a cinematic universe, it happened a lot. Still today, it still happens a lot. You have these actors portraying a well-known, beloved character, and then you tune in the next season, and all of a sudden, Darren Steven looks a little different. So we're going to talk about the what you do, how that impacts the audience. Does it work? Does it not work?
Yeah, with Bewitched, it was definitely something's wrong with that dick. It kind of was the idea. I was like, that doesn't look right.
There's an ex-girlfriend joke in there, I'm sure.
I'm sure there is.
So we are. I've just finished writing the first rounds of a new series that we had originally jumped into way back. This has its roots all the way to '95 with Blue Moon.
Blue Moon.
But it eventually evolved into a future rather than a past, an altered past. The Night Watchman. Mm-hmm. We're delving back into that, and brings up the character of Isabella Montoya, who has appeared twice, technically 3 times if we count Tag Conspiracy.
Tag,
though we never really clearly saw her in number 3. But she was in the original Night Watchman in 2002, played by Cindy Saavedra. Mm-hmm. And then Amy Jordan took over the role in 2000.
I really liked her. I liked her as Isabella.
Yeah, she was a terrific.
Amy did I saw Amy in a couple of different roles. Well, a couple of different things, but I really liked her as Isabella. I thought her. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to gush about her, but I don't like a lot of this stuff and the actors, but her performance I thought was very convincing.
Yeah, and it's a different one than Cindy portrayed. Mm-hmm. However, I love Amy Jordan's portrayal, but as I'm jumping into the series version, because when Amy Jordan played her, she was in Innocent Saga and Green Conspiracy.
Right.
And in the Night Watchman script that I'm writing now, believe it or not, I see more of a Cindy Saavedra style in her.
Yeah, I could see that.
I would love to see Amy Jordan's portrayal of
Amy would do it really well. I think
Isabella in that. I think she would bring something different.
This is going to sound terrible, and I'm not saying bad things, but I think she would actually do it too well. the Isabella Montoya you have in this one is, at first, not very likable,
and that's the problem with Amy. She's
very likable.
Even when she's playing just a uber bitch or something, you're still like, oh.
Is Amy an uber? Does she ever play uber bitches?
She was you know what? No, she was going to play in one of my the Shakespearean musical. I wanted her to play the evil woman competitor to the family.
Right. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I guess I maybe just always imagined her in that role. And,
That's true.
How she was able
I think she would do well at it, but yeah. So you've got the Cindy Saavedra, and then of course Amy Jordan playing this character, and played them differently. Both of them were very different, but it's the same character.
Yeah, and which is difficult because when I'm writing and casting, this is going to be really tough because because we never really saw Walter again, and it was played by Rich McDonald.
And Rich was very good at that.
Yeah, he went on to be in Generation Kill, the HBO show. And then Frank Brantley, who played Carlos Desarina. And of course, even though it's a completely different Carlos Desarina, still see.
When
I
was looking at him when I was reading it. I was seeing him in my head. You're right.
So it's those original 3 from 2002 that I saw when I was writing this new one.
Right.
So now it's even tougher going into it. Going, okay, who am I going to get?
And the problem is, you may have been writing for those actors, which isn't always a good idea.
Yeah,
and that makes it difficult for another actor to come in to play a character that has been written for an actor that isn't them.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I have seen some actors step into roles that I was like, oh, I want this person to play, and then they weren't available, so they step in, and I'm like, oh my God, they did such a great job. Oh, that's terrific. Oh, that's wonderful. Because before Amy Jordan stepped into the role, I was like, no one's ever going to play this like Cindy did. And then, but she brought something else.
Amy didn't play it like Cindy played it, but she
brought
was
something else, and I was like, oh wow. This is it. And I remember
she was a lot more cerebral.
Yeah, well, it was on the set of Serial Rabbit 3 when Amy was doing the gratuitous hot chick scene, and I offered her the role of Isabella that night because I just saw something and I was like, man, that's Isabella. But it's one of those things that it's like, where do you go? What do you do? Yeah. Especially when you've had somebody playing this role for the longest time.
Yeah.
We're looking at remaking Second to Last Worst Day, and the role of Hottie.
Was that a human head?
Yep.
Is that a friend of yours?
Nope.
You can order anything off the internet.
How do you Amanda's role in Hottie?
Oh yeah.
It's like, she kind of made that role iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that how do you
for
play
her?
that role?
I mean, she was. Well, and like other characters actors that you've used. We were just talking about one earlier today who was in a role, who we've talked about a different role for her, and I hadn't thought about her. Then you mentioned I was thinking about her for this role. I was like, holy crap, yeah, because you could see.
Nicole, we're talking about you.
Okay, fine. Fine, Blondie. Hope you haven't cut your butt on concrete recently. Anyway, we were talking about a character who was based, you could tell, as written, was kind of based on somebody else. But
I mean, we can go ahead and talk about that. I mean, I don't mind actually saying it.
Okay,
we
fine.
Had,
your world, not mine.
Yeah, I didn't want you to think you were being restricted.
Okay.
Or anything. But yeah, I think it's easier to visualize too, because now it'll be interesting just throwing these two actresses up against each other in the roles.
We're not going to make them fight or anything.
No.
Okay.
I mean to see.
That's a whole different problem.
To see the actress that we're looking at now to play the character that we would see, to see, wow, how would that work, and then see in a year from now what it does look like.
Yeah.
But the role of Cecilia in Red Days.
Oh, hey Van, it's Chad. Ooh, I'm so crude. I like the prison sex. Give me that expensive liquor, Cecilia.
Thank you for holding. Is this a zombie, rodent, or other infestation?
I'm gonna go with other.
Which is originally played by Ciamara.
Hey, Daddy. Who's your new friend?
Who, great actress, terrific.
I actually preferred her for that role in the time. That was actually when the thing was.
Yeah, and that
we were talking about the role. I was actually.
It's the only time Sergio has ever looked to me and said, "I was wrong."
Yeah, because he went up against me.
Yeah, he didn't want.
You don't go up against me. What the is wrong with you? I'm always right, That's not even a. What the hell are you thinking, Sergio? And the reason was that I liked. What was her name? Samara. Ciamara. Oh my Lord! I didn't know her name was so complicated. I apologize. The reason I wanted her was because we looked at a bunch of different actresses for that role, and any one of them would done well, but she had something in her eyes that just kind of looked off. I mean, but purposely, not like she was crazy. I mean, purposely. I mean, when she was acting, she had that look, and I thought, that's the one we want. And when I saw her immediately, that's the one I want. Now, once again, I'm not your casting director, but you asked my opinion, and I gave it to you. And then when I watched her in that role, I was like, I'm so glad we got her. because she was, normal at first, like she's supposed to be, the character was supposed to be, and of course she turned into what she turned into. And now we're looking at a character who kind of has stuff in that vein, and a character with whom an actress with whom we've only worked with once, but liked, and thought she was good enough for us to look at her again, and so I could see this other actress, the one we're talking about, Nicole, being able to do this character differently, but with the same kind of thing that you need her to be, but the concept is, it was written with this other character, because I guess that's what you do as a writer. You pick a character, and you kind of formulate the mental image of this character based upon something.
Michael Crichton did that in Rising Sun with John Connor. Was it John Connor? Yeah, it was John Connor was the role or the character in the book. And when he wrote it, he thought of Sean Connery because John, it sort of loosely translates, and it's sort of the Sean is sort of the Scottish name for John.
Yeah. Like Johan
Connery.
Yeah, Connery. Yeah.
And when they made the movie, he was lucky enough just to get him.
Right.
So sometimes it does work out.
Sometimes it works out great.
But that does raise the question, and this is, and some actors do, some actors don't, and the question is, and that's going to be something that whoever fills the shoes of Cecilia, whether it's Nicole or somebody else, do you show them CMR's performance? Do you show them and say, this is the way it was done before? Or does she just take what's on the page? You just trust her to take what's on the page and bring something new. Now, this is going to be different from like what we're doing with kind of movies in between, as opposed to maybe a TV series, where you're going to have to tell Dick Sargent, you got what to say. I don't remember which one was first, Sargent.
Dick Sargent was first.
You're going to have to tell York, you got to play it like Sargent.
Well, and when you have recurring characters, talk about Bewitched, or also Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when they replaced Aunt Viv. Once again, I didn't watch that show, but I know they did it. You have an actress who, when she came into the role, was different than the other actors. I mean, just different in so many ways, and so you kind of wonder if they replaced her just because no one else wanted the job, or if it was a job they wanted, but they just didn't give her enough guidance, or there's all kinds of things like that. And then if you're looking at TV shows where they use a actress as a character who may be older, like Sarah Connor Chronicles, where you had what's her name who played. What's her name in Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of her name.
Playing Sarah Connor, who of course was played by Linda Hamilton twice at that point. And so she had to be Linda Hamilton, but of course she didn't. I mean, she wasn't going to be Linda Hamilton. But I thought she did a very good job. The series didn't last very long. But I didn't think that was because of anything she did wrong. And then of course you got the Hulks. They keep replacing Hulks. In the MCU, the stupid stuff they're doing where they keep replacing characters for whatever reason. And I understand that has to happen. But that's an interesting question, because it would be impossible to find a female character who hasn't seen the Terminator. I mean, if she's in Hollywood and she hasn't seen Terminator 1, Terminator 2, what the hell has she been doing? I mean, those are movies that you just kind of watch. They are iconic for their time period. Terminator in '84 and Terminator 2 in '91 were blockbusters. I mean, smash bangs. I mean, selling out theaters for days at a time. And back then, that was amazing. I mean, they weren't going to be on VCRs for another year or two. I mean, it was a big deal back then. And so to tell someone you're going to play Sarah Connor. Okay, and have an actress just go like, well, I'll just go with I'll just go with what you wrote about Sarah Connor. Do you watch Linda Hamilton? And it says, okay, I need to emulate Linda Hamilton, or do you just kind of have her make it up? Because you run into the problem of when you got, Star Trek or Star Wars 8 and Ryan Johnson, who never watched a Star Wars movie, trying to do a Star Wars movie, and he absolutely butchers it. Okay? And it seemed like everybody in that show had never seen a Star Wars movie and didn't know anything about anything. Okay? Do you take that chance with your actor? Having no idea what she's supposed to be doing. I mean, you've told her, you need to be this character. You need to be the mother of the person who's going to save the world from the machines. And she's not. Well, you've taken a beloved character, Sarah Connor, who people have seen. And God, I think it was when that came out. That was like 2008. So for 14 years, we knew who Sarah Connor was. And we'd seen 2 installments of how badass Linda Hamilton was as Sarah Connor. And all of a sudden you give us a Sarah Connor who isn't Sarah Connor, we're going to crucify you. So I don't know. That's a tough thing to say because you don't necessarily want the previous actresses or actors' performance to color what they do, but you still have to have them know what they're doing in order to do it right. That's a question I can't answer. I don't know. I guess it depends on your actress.
Yeah, and I think it depends on how tightly you want the continuity.
Yeah.
I think in case of something like Cecilia, where it's 2 movies that are 4 or 5 years apart and aren't directly linked. They're not.
Other
really
than just being.
Yeah, just kind of be based on that character. I think it would come down to me being on set or in rehearsals or auditions and seeing, well, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. I do want more of this, but I think it's appropriate to let the actor have a shot at it first to see what they bring to it.
I got you.
However,
that can be done in rehearsals.
Yes. To say, okay, to see, I think this could work. I think what they're bringing is different, but it's still capturing the spirit of what's on the page, and I like what she's bringing.
Right.
However, in another instance where they're playing a character that's well established, if we were to have to recast, if we did a reboot of the Innocent Saga. That's something different because then you can do whatever. But if we're continuing the Innocent Saga and we need to bring Ruby back, it's like, okay, you got to watch the Marcus footage. You got to watch how he handles himself, because if you all of a sudden change from Luke Skywalker into Jake Skywalker,
okay,
then you're going to have a problem.
Right.
So I think it's going to be case by case, but it is something to consider. Do I need to show the actor this, or will it hurt their interpretation of the character?
And also you have to look at the fan base or the movies themselves, because if you are going to have someone, let's take Luke, since we know Star Wars, let's take Luke Skywalker. If you're going to have someone play Luke Skywalker, they need to know who that character is. They can't bring their own interpretation to Luke Skywalker. They can bring certain things, because the problem is everyone knows this character, and they've known him for 40 years. So you can't go changing that. But if you're going to bring a character out of, not relative obscurity, but say you're going to bring Alex from Last Starfighter, and you're going to have someone new play him. Well, there was only the one movie, and his mannerisms or whatever were good, and they were funny, and I liked his character. But if you give me a new Alex Rogan, I'm not going to shit all over you. If you give me somebody new, so that could be so you could just say, okay, you're a kid, lives in a trailer park, you're in California, trying to go to college, you can't. You play a game, and an alien comes down, and now you're going to fight the Kodan Armada. Go. And he just does what he does, And so maybe that would work out okay. So I guess it really depends on the genre you're going with. Or not the genre, but the kind of material you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a beloved franchise that people have, understood for decades and decades, you can't play James T. Kirk not like fucking William Shatner. You have to play him that way.
Yeah.
Okay? But you could play, Ensign Bob however you want to, because no one knows Ensign Bob, right?
I'm going to give you a real interesting one.
Okay.
And we've done it out of necessity, and even within the same movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Serial Rabbit. how he's played by different people in different moments because Brad couldn't make it, or because Brad was pretty much always the one we wanted. It's like if Brad can play the bunny, Brad plays the bunny.
Right.
The only time that wasn't the case was when we put Joey, when we put Matt in the suit in Serial Rabbit 3 to do the martial arts, and we specifically wanted him to look different, to look like it was somebody else in the suit, was perfectly fine.
Right.
But any other times when you or Jake have had to play him, even though we don't see your face, even though we don't hear you, we can tell it's not the Brabbit.
Well, I don't know, because I forgot it wasn't the Brabbit when I was watching it, so I don't know. And I was watching myself play the rabbit and forgot it was me and the rabbit. Okay, so I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying that I did a good job, but I will say this. I was trying very hard to imitate Brad. I did. I was sitting here like, I need to do all the... I was trying to think about all the weird hand motions.
One slipped out, though.
This one slipped out.
Oh, fuck you with the backhand!
This is a Jeff thing, and I went, whoo, no! I did. The hatchet hand came out, and then the hatchet hand turned into the crooked finger again. And
What the hell's going on here?
But anyway, and Brad caught it. Of course, Brad is like, I hatchet hand you son of a bitch. But I was trying very hard to imitate Brad. And so in that case, I guess you could say that was me doing my absolute damnedest.
Almost at that point, you're not playing the Serial Rabbit.
I was playing Brad. I was trying to imitate Brad playing the rabbit. I was playing Brabbit.
Yeah.
Brad Rabbit. That's who I was. I wasn't being the Serial Rabbit. I was being Brad being the Serial Rabbit. Trying my damnedest to act like him. Please God, let me act like Brad. How many times does that happen in the world when someone's trying to act like Brad? Once. At least once. At least once. Back in November of 2017. I was trying so hard to be Brad. So, in that case, yeah. Very specifically not trying to give my own spin on it, even though that happened. But I was very much trying to be the other person. I was trying to be Dick Sargent as Dick York, or Dick York as Dick Sargent. Whichever Dick it was. I get those dicks confused. Those are very confusing dicks to have around.
Insert ex-girlfriend joke.
Insert ex-girlfriend joke there. But, what kind of ex-girlfriends have you had? Anyway, the entire point of that was to be that character that Brad has made his own. I couldn't be a rabbit that wasn't Brad. There's no way I could do that. I couldn't be... I don't have the understanding of what makes the rabbit as awesome as it is that isn't Brad doing it. So I'm doing whatever the hell he was doing. And I did. I actually would sit there and I watched stuff of Brad that he was doing. I actually was thinking to myself of stuff Brad was doing while we were filming it as Brad before, when we picked him up from hell and blah, blah, blah. All the weird crap he was doing, his little mannerisms and like, the way he would do that kind of thing. The kind of that I can't. I can't do Brad like that. But specifically to be that character. So in that case, I had to watch the old video.
When we do Serial Rabbit in Vegas, we need to bring him down to the Strip. I bet we can find a budget down there with all the people they take pictures of, the people that dress up as Spider-Man and everything, and we got Serial Rabbit running down there. People, I bet we would find at least one person who knows Serial Rabbit down there, but other people just think he's the bunny. I bet he could make $200-$300 down there.
And we could use it to, film something. You better leave the 3-pronged bladed destruction thingy. Yeah, you better leave that behind.
Yeah. No, we're not getting that on a plane.
I could drive it over there. I'm just saying.
So from a standpoint now, honestly, I'll be honest and brutally harsh here. Most independent filmmakers are not going to find themselves in a situation like this because they don't usually have series or things like that. To the extent where you have to worry about that kind of a thing,
right?
And certainly not the type of following where you have to worry about that kind of a thing, where it's going to be fully upset one way or the other,
right?
But it is something that you have to consider and that you have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
I think it's tough. I don't think anybody wants to do it. But there are times where it just has to be done. Medical reasons, injuries, they move out of the country, or sometimes there are those times where you just can't work with the actor anymore.
Yeah.
Let's part ways and do something else.
Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately, whatever, that's very rarely happened.
Yeah.
With us. More often than not, they get out of the business. They move on to different styles of films they don't want to do the fantasy sci-fi anymore or something like that.
That's fair.
But they still want to work with us. They're just not in that kind of
That's
thing.
fair.
Or they just get out of acting completely. They move away. That's the majority.
Yeah.
If not the primary majority, I'm talking 95 to 99%
Right.
of when we have to recast. That's the reason why.
Yeah.
But it does happen, and you have to ask yourself how strict you are going to be on that continuity. But when you can look at it and say, well, Marvel does it and gets away with it, and people are okay with it, is it fair for them to bitch and moan about your independent film?
We're talking about Aunt Viv from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and the way they handled it was, I thought, was like breaking the fourth wall, very kind of meta, if you will. Back in the day, I don't know when the hell that was. Like that was 80s, late 80s, 90s. It was a long time ago because that show was in the late 80s and 90s.
It was before Will Smith was running around.
Yeah, it was.
People.
It was before. God, just anyway.
Before Will Cuck.
Will Smith. Stop it. You can. You can't talk about her. Hey, Jesus, Jeff. What the hell's wrong with you? God. Just read the cue cards, Jeff. So the thing is, if you have a character to replace, in this case, I thought was a pretty good way to do it. Was they said, Jeff comes over and says, Mrs. I can't remember the Banks. Mrs. Banks, ever since you had that baby, you look different. She's like, oh, thank you, Jeff. And of course, Will, who's got the little baby, he looks up at the camera and goes, and the audience got it. And I think in that case, if you let the audience in that particular case, because the audience can see, it's like, the hell? The audience gets it. You have to say something. You kind of do. I mean, you don't have to, but because everyone knows. I mean, it's not like they go to the taping of the show and they don't know what's going on. It's not like you can't look at the previews and go, But the way they did that, they kind of went to the audience and was like, hey, check this out. And they let the audience in, and the audience laughed. And that was it. Now how the actress does after that is up to them. But at that point, you've
made the bridge.
You've made the bridge. The audience is okay with it. It's the same thing as Bones McCoy in Star Trek Next Generation. Doing the medical thing and seeing the new Enterprise. You shake hands between the old and the new, and you go out the door, and everything's fine. I think that's a good way to do it, if you have to do it.
Yeah. And the motivations and reasoning and how you do things like that is constantly evolving and changing with the format of film and whatnot.
Right.
Back in the day, you could do the Darren switch and just move on with it.
Yeah.
Now it becomes you want to explain it and things like that. Sometimes it's monetary. It's like I was explaining before, it usually happens with parents of sitcom people who have recurring roles. You see them in the first, you're introduced to the mom and dad of this character in the first season. And then in season 5, we bring them in, but now it's Carol Burnett and Ed Asner. It's because you can afford these guys now.
Yeah.
So you'll change them and whatnot. You'll be kind of like, hey, and they don't make any reference to it. But in that time, they were sitcoms, and you maybe see reruns on cable, but you didn't have the streaming and whatnot.
Right.
So how do you recast when characters are? You just do, and hope it winds up for the best.